Hi everybody, my name is Mark Hoyle. I work for Northern Archaeological Associates based in Barnard Castle, and to coincide with the release of our latest monograph, Contact, Concord and Conquest by the brilliant Dave Fell, which is freely downloadable from the Archaeological Data Services website, I'm going to be running workshops every day this week. Today and tomorrow we're going to be looking at pottery illustration and how these are created for monographs themselves. Now, there's a few bits of kit that you kind of probably need before we start this if you want to have a go at drawing yourself. Pencil, doesn't really matter what kind of pencil you use, a ruler, paper if you've got some gridded paper, if not, normal paper's alright, and something called a profile gauge itself, which are really useful. You can get them in several kind of varieties. I prefer the kind of metal pinned ones because you get a bit more detail. Now, before we start, one of the biggest questions I always get asked by anybody is, why don't you just photograph objects in pottery? Well, for me the answer is really quite simple, because the photograph produces a simple image using reflected light of an object, but the illustration is something more. It can produce a kind of facsimile of the image itself, but it also includes kind of subtle interpretive accentuations. And this is kind of born of the illustrator's kind of skill and ability, but also using the specialist kind of rationale, which is simply what are you trying to show from the object itself. So certain features will be brought to the front, other features will kind of be left to the back a bit. So what we're going to do today is look at pot. Okay, use a normal cup if you want to try this at home. Okay, I sometimes use that, but a cup is a cup and a pot is a pot. Doesn't really matter what you use. Now we've got pot here, a bit of Roman pot. Now what we're going to try and do is kind of illustrate this using a kind of grid. So a few bits of kit you might need. Okay, rim charts. I've got several here that come in different varieties. If you kind of have a look on the NAA website, there should be one to download if you don't have one. And these is a kind of a rim chart, a radius chart, and you can see all these kind of curves on here, and they all have kind of numbers on, 0 in the centre, leading all the way up. And what we're going to try and do is use the pot, the kind of rim of the pot itself, and kind of work out what the radius is going to be. And once we've got that, we're going to create something like this. Okay, so you've got the radius of the pot along the top, the kind of the rim diameter, a T-bar down the middle, and if you have the full vessel, obviously the base. Now this kind of T-bar should be at 90 degrees, and what we're going to do is kind of draw a pot, so you're going to see the inside and the outside. Now I have here a kind of basic framework, so we're going to start off with the bar itself. We're going to take the measurement for the rim, and then we're going to kind of create this outline profile of the outside of the vessel, which kind of looks like this, and then kind of inked in. And then we've got this, which is the outside, which has some decoration on. Now not all pot has decoration on, but if it does, that kind of needs to be indicated. So you've got the outside of the vessel, and then a kind of cutaway to show the inside of the vessel. Now this is the important bit, this kind of the wall of the vessel itself. That's what kind of specialists really want to see. So if we have a piece of pot here, you can kind of see the kind of the wall that we're trying to recreate. Now by using this chart, what we're going to start to do is to kind of push it further out until you can kind of see where it should fit. Okay, now I'm doing this back to front, so I'm going to have to turn it around. So if you push it on the rim chart itself, and then we have a mark there which says 6.5 centimeters. Okay, so remembering that kind of T-bar that we had, what you're going to try and do is draw a line 6.5 centimeters this side and 6.5 centimeters this side with the line down the middle. Now I can do that quite quickly using my ruler and using the permatrace itself. So if we quickly draw a line along the top, and 6.5 down the middle, creates the T-bar. So we kind of have that basic shape. Now, one of the problems you've got with pot itself is kind of when you start to take a reading using a profile gauge, kind of what angle is it going to be at? Okay, so you kind of, especially when you're starting out, it's quite kind of tricky if you've got smaller sherds to kind of look at kind of how the angle sits. The bigger the sherds are, the easier it is because it would sit flat. Now, one of the best techniques you've got is a kind of rocking technique. So if you get flat surface and the piece of pot, you kind of see there, if I angle that backwards, you can kind of see light coming underneath. If I go the other way, you can see the edges raise up, so you will get to a point where it kind of sits flat. Okay, so hopefully you can see that there. You kind of angle it that way, it's incorrect. Again, that way. So you get the angle which is flat. Now, if you have a drawing board or a flat surface, that's kind of pretty easy to push down, and then that's quite simple. Now, all we're going to do is take a profile gauge. Now, these are great objects, okay? You kind of gently push in, and it kind of gives you the profile of whatever you push it into. Now, when we're doing pottery illustration, you have to be very careful. You don't want to damage the pot, you don't want to force it in. So what I kind of suggest you do is rest it on a drawing board or a flat surface. Now, this is upside down. You might be wondering why I'm doing it upside down. Now, when I then invert that and take that away, it kind of has the profile. So you can kind of see that it doesn't have the top of it on, but this will sit on the top of the bar, the T-bar itself. So when we look at our chart like that, this will kind of sit flat or flush to that bar. So using this measurement I've made here, I'm going to then make the marks on the permatrace itself using the T-bar I've created, and then very gently trace around the profile gauge itself to create the first mark. Now, one good rule for archaeological illustration is measure, draw, measure again, just to check that the measurements are accurate, because when these are then produced and put in a publication, what most specialists will do is just look at the publication for reference material. They won't actually have the sherds of pot in front of them. So once we've got the first measurement down, we can then take the profile gauge again and very gently tap the pins onto the surface of the pot. Now, if again I move that away, we now have the lid, the top of the pot itself. Now we can add that of what we've created already to the existing measurements we've got and kind of give us the outside profile of the pot. So at the moment, we're kind of taking the measurements, so we have from here all the way down, okay? So we've got this outside measurement. Now, you can get calipers, you can use anything you want, you can use soldering wire to do this, a ruler. What we're going to do is take a measurement at the top, like that. So then we remove that from there. This measurement here gives us the thickness of the wall of the vessel at the top. So again, I'm going to place it on the outside of the pottery drawing and make a mark. Again, I'm going to take a second measurement, which is in the middle here, where it kind of bulbs in over. And again, where that's drawn on the permatrace itself, make another mark. Third mark, I'm going to use the bottom, and again, take the measurement like that. So now we have the outside of the vessel's profile, but we also have kind of joined the dots on the inside. Now what we can do with that is again, very gently push the profile into there. So this is the inside of the vessel now. Now we have the outside, we've got the pointers drawn on the permatrace itself. So what we're going to do is very gently draw the inside of the vessel itself. Now, what you'll have, hopefully, you can see there, is a very simple copy of the wall of the vessel itself. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to draw the outside of it, but instead of measuring it again, a very simple and quick way to do that is by using the kind of T-bar frame that you've created. You can just simply fold the permatrace over. So the permatrace is folded in half using that middle T-bar, and you can basically trace the other side. Now, I also want to show on here this kind of indentation. You might not be able to see it there, but the two very, very faint lines, one there and one there. And I want to show those on the outside of the illustration itself. So we can just draw some lines. Again, taking these, we're measuring it. So that's accurate there. So what we've ended up with is a kind of very quick and simple way to create a pottery illustration itself. Now, again, I'm going to go back over, I'm going to recap that again, and we're going to use a different piece of pot this time. Okay, so that's quite a nice like curved piece there. We also have in a bag another piece of Roman pot here. Okay, so this is different. You can see there, that's got the rim on there. This one, the angle's different. Okay, you can see this is more of a kind of dish or plate, but simply because of the lip, the surface area itself, and the kind of markings on the inside. So we're going to do the same process using the rim chart itself, and what we're going to do is kind of slowly push this up onto the rim chart and kind of find out what the radius is. So by gently holding it on the paper and moving it up, you can see there it is 8 centimeters. So again, we'll create the T-bar, form one side, form the other by using a ruler. I mean, it's much simpler when you're doing this and you have kind of gridded paper. If not, it doesn't matter, as long as you've got a straight line, straight edge to kind of work with. So we're going to create those marks on here. Let's get a different pencil that actually works this time. And what we're going to do, again, by using a flat surface, is kind of look at the angle this would come at. Now, hopefully you can see there, you can kind of see underneath there, there's light coming through. You tilt it too far, and there's light on either side. So you're looking for the angle where no light appears underneath it, which is kind of like there, okay? So again, I'm going to use the flat surface, the drawing board, but again, a table, any flat surface you've got. And when I'm kind of happy that I can't see any light coming underneath the pot itself, I'm going to very gently push the profile gauge in. So you can see we have a mark there, and that kind of fits quite nicely on there. So again, we're going to take this will sit across the top of the bar you've created. I'm going to put those measurements on the page. Again, this is a quite simple process. It takes practice, okay? You can practice with cups. If you're a student, you want to kind of get into archaeological illustration, just practice with the materials you've got. You might not have an assemblage of pottery or small finds to kind of work from, but the process of drawing any object's exactly the same. A cup, a pot, a bowl, anything. Just practice, give it a go. And once you get kind of competent with it, you can put a portfolio together and kind of show people what you can actually do producing this. So we've got this measurement. Again, what I'm going to do at the bottom, I'm going to take a measurement and I'm going to mark it on the page itself. Again, halfway up, I'm going to take another measurement like that. I'm going to move that out. So you can see there, this is the thickness of the wall of the vessel itself. And then again, right at the top, right at the lip of the kind of the dish itself, which kind of is measured there. So again, hopefully, I take this off the drawing board, you should be able to see we kind of have the outside of the vessel itself, and there are 3 dots on the inside. Now, we're going to do exactly the same process again. We are going to kind of use the profile gauge, and we're going to take the internal measurements of the vessel. Now, remember, again, very gently push it in. Now, you can see already there's a slight lip there, which may or may not show up on camera. Just there. So that's kind of picked it up. And what we need to do then is, in case of join the dots again, we kind of put this internal edge using the profile gauge and mark it on the paper. Now, sometimes you can be lucky. If it's flat, you can just put the piece of pot on the drawing itself just to make sure the measurements are correct. Sometimes you can't, it's a bit more trickier, but again, check your measurements, go back, make sure that the measurements are correct. If it's not, rub it out. It's just a pencil drawing, it doesn't really matter. Again, kind of taking in this top edge now. So by very gently using the profile gauge, we can kind of create an outside vessel wall, which again is what the specialists look for. So hopefully you can see that here. This is the second one. So this is the dish itself. Now we have the profile. What we're going to do now is flip it over and kind of trace it on that side. So tracing saves time, saves money. If you're working for a commercial archaeological unit, budgets are tight sometimes and you don't have kind of time, you can just create a pottery illustration by just using the outside wall of the vessel itself. And I'll look tomorrow, kind of showing you how you can use computers to scan these in and digitally ink them up. You can kind of flip them around and rotate them. Very few places hand draw pots anymore, and ink them in, which aren't done in either Illustrator or CorelDRAW. Bits of software like that. You can download free software. Just have a look at Google. Free kind of vector software. Just see what you're comfortable with, and give it a go. I use Adobe Illustrator. Northern Archaeological Associates very kindly kind of get a license where the whole CAD team can use it, and it's a brilliant piece of kit. So what we have, hopefully you can see there, is the second pot drawing itself. So we've taken these two bits of pot, and what we've done in 15 minutes is kind of create a drawing for record, for archive and for publication, where specialists can use instead of having the bits of pot in front of them. Hopefully you found that useful. I'll stay online for a few more minutes to answer any questions, if anyone's got any questions they want to ask about today. But if not, thanks for joining in, and hopefully see you again tomorrow. Thank you.